Hello guys, and welcome on back. I wanted to do this nice short and sweet video again for the trees this week. I mentioned in my last video we're going to revisit these trees, take another look at them, and discuss more ways to make a better tree for a game engine, because I looked at the last trees that we had, and this is just a quick rendition of a tree that I was working on. I'm going to work on these trees in off the camera and show you guys the progress of them, because there's a lot more going on than I thought there would be to just create some simple trees and some trees that look well. So when we talk about trees, we want to make sure that we're keeping the polygon count of the trees relatively low, because we're going to obviously end up importing or using tons of these trees as a foliage asset. So if we have trees that are like 10,000 polygons and we're going to be calling them a lot of times, or have an area where we're going to have a lot of trees, like I will in the vertical slice at the end part of that tutorial level, there's going to be a lot of trees, and I have hopes to showing a really nice big landscape of some of these trees. Now, of course, we're going to use some level of detail effects and some distancing to help control what we're calling in and what the game is required to build and create. But when we looked at the trees that we had earlier, they were far too huge. I'll even pull those guys on up for you guys to take a look at them and see what I was talking about. So if we take a look at these trees, we have one tree is about, what's that one tree? This one tree is at 10,000 faces, and when we export this and load it into Unreal, those 10,000 faces are going to get doubled, because Unreal likes to triangulate. So it's going to double up to, and fun thing about Blender is it shows right here, the triangle count is going to be 20,000. 20,000 triangles or 10,000 polygons is going to be way too hard for our game engine. So what we have now as a test tree, something to just kind of discuss what we're talking about when we're looking at trees, is we have something that is at 6,000 polygons and going to become 12,000 triangles. That is far more manageable than what we had earlier, because when we look at real life trees in an actual forest, we want to make sure that we're going for something like this. When we look at a forest, you have these tall trunks and then just branches coming off of the higher areas of the tree. You see probably like I'm just guesstimating. Let's just always keep this rough. At like, say that's 12 feet off the ground, maybe more like 20 feet off the ground, we start to have our first branches coming off the trees, and then we're starting to get the growth pattern up here. If you see any branches down low, right around 5 feet, 6 feet, right at human head height, you'll start to see some branches of some of these other trees, but most trees in a lush forest like this start really up high, because we want to make sure that when we create the forest overlook, I'm wanting these real bushy trees to be overlooked at the top of the tree line. And when we're looking up to see stuff like this. So even in a tree like this, what I'm hoping to create, we have branches that start 30, 40 feet way up in the sky, and that's going to help create this bushy overlook. But we may have some branches down here to create this low hanging look. So that's what we're working on with this tree, is that we have a nice long trunk that then splits and creates all these branches. This is very much a much more lower polygon look of a tree, but I'm going to work on creating these to be a little more realistic looking, because right now this shape is very cartoonish and we don't really get this clean, crisp look to the tree. And I might fiddle around with maybe going with a lower polygon count and something that looks more square, and then when we add a texture to it, maybe we start to get something that looks more uniform and smooth. We just have to see what's happening here. But even with this tree, I wanted to show this to you guys. The actual polygon create, I was talking about having these really easy topology to look at, and this is a much nicer and more appealing topology for a tree, because we have easy squares, nice crisp lines that we can tell that, okay, this is where I want a seam. I want to create a seam right here, and then I wanted seams across the top. So I wanted to get something very cylindrical so that it was easy to create these. This is a much cleaner UV. I can actually tell that, okay, this is one of my main branches, because we have actual section where it's cut off where a branch would go off of it, and we can see that these are probably one of the branches that go on. And so when I look at creating the texture for it, the texture is so much easier to look at. It's so much easier to tell what's going wrong when I have applied a texture, and it'll just make my life easier. And that is the big thing that I see a lot of 3D modelers look at when they're creating objects, is that they're not making life easier for the other person that they're sending this tree off to. Because in the game design industry, you'll see people just create a whole bunch of trees. That's all they did for the day, and then they just throw those trees off to somebody else. And that somebody else is going to be the person who has to UV it and create the skin for the tree and texture it later on. And if the 3D modeler just throws something at them with these really messed up topology, and you have faces all squished, scrunched up and mixed around, and it's just terrible to look at. You can't even figure out what you're looking at here. Then that texture artist is probably just going to either talk to their lead, shoot it on back, 3D modeler has to redo it again, and then the texture artist gets it again, and it bounces back and forth too many times. If you get something with these clean topology, then the texture artist doesn't have to bounce it back to the modeler. They get to just start UVing it, start creating their seams, their edges, and get really easy, fast topology in the UVs, because this is so much easier for me to now tell, okay, these are branches, that's a offshoot of a main branch. And same here, we have main branch with offshoots for child branches and all sorts of things like that. We do have a little issue here. I went and UV'd this real quickly, so I'll be fixing up that mishap there. But you can see, I now know I can probably figure out where this is, because I can zoom on in and be like, oh, okay, so it seems like there is a child branch that has its UVs messed up on the main branch. So I can go back, figure out which child branch that is, and easily fix it. And it might be, say, this one, or even one of these ones down here. It's so much easier for me to figure it out. And that's what I'm going to be working on for these trees, making something a lot better, because we want a tree that looks similar to what we have seen here, because we want to make something that has a nice, thick, barky trunk that has some twists, some knots, some knolls, I believe they're called, in it, so that when we get up to the top, we can create these really bushy branches and leaves just on top of it. I'm still looking into how to create good leaf structures and things like that. I'll probably get real close to that. Maybe there'll be one more video showing you guys the finished look of these trees, and then after that, I'll go straight into showcasing leaves. So, with that said, we are going to hopefully, I'll have a new video coming up in the following week that shows big, tall, girthy trunks with beautiful canopy leaves on top of it, or a canopy of branches that we can easily see becoming this type of overlook when we're looking at it from the top, and a mixture of something like these two images from the bottom. So, with that said, thank you guys for watching. Trees are troublesome. They're a fun thing to create for video games, and they require a lot of in-depth look into the actual fauna of tree life. So, with that said, please comment down below, like, subscribe, do all that fun, jazzy stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video.